play this song today, Spirit of Radio by Rush, because it is one of the favorite Rush songs of one Gary Weinrib. Gary Lee Weinrib, to be exact. The birth name of the man who became better known in these here parts as Geddy Lee. Lead singer and bass guitar player for the greatest rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll music. Notice we do not qualify that with Canadian. No. Rush is the greatest rock and roll band of all time. I will argue that with you until my last breath. But today, we play that song for Geddy because it is Geddy's 72nd birthday. Born on this day, July the 29th, back in 1953, happy birthday to the Canadian rock icon and overall rock icon. 72. Paul McCartney is touring again at the age of 83. Are we being denied the opportunity of seeing and hearing more of Geddy Lee play live on some stage somewhere? I hope we get the chance again at some point. Geddy Lee's birthday today, the 29th of July. Good morning to you. Hope the day is off to a great start. Really appreciate you stopping by, making some time for us today. Lots in store on the show, including our first ever such feature that we'll talk about more during the Farwell Show 5 in just a moment. But before we get there, I don't know about you, but did you notice how hot it was yesterday? I'm going to call on Devin Robertson, the guy on the other side of the glass, just to join me for a quick second. Dev, when I say it was so hot yesterday, you just say, how hot was it? This makes sense. You got this? Okay. All right. You got this. It was so hot yesterday, Dev.
How hot was it?
I'm glad you asked me that, young man. It was so hot yesterday that when I got into my car here at work to go home, it was too hot to touch. Like the steering wheel and the shifter, it almost burned my hand. That's how hot it was yesterday, in case you were curious.
That's really hot.
It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. The temperature gauge inside the car said 33 degrees. I also have a black car. I park it in the sun. I mean, there ain't no shelter out here. Anyway, whatever. It was so hot yesterday. I got in my car and I almost burned my little hands. But everything worked out just fine. The summer of 2025 continues to impress, at least from where I'm sitting. All right, this is where Lynyrd Skynyrd sang 1, 2, 3, 4. And this takes us to the Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Number 1, the Prime Minister's path is returning to Wilmot Township, and it will be in the same place it was before, outside the township offices in Baden. Ward 2 Councillor Chris Wilkinson had this to say about the unanimous decision at council last night.
Leadership matters. Government matters. Our young people should be inspired to participate, not turned off, not made cynical, and not left to inherit a culture that avoids its own history or story. We're not just reinstalling statues, we're restarting a conversation, one that acknowledges Canada's complexity, honors the diversity of views in our community, and gives space to nuance.
The decision follows an extensive public consultation process in Wilmot, and while the statues of Canada's Prime Ministers will return, the monument for Sir John A. Macdonald will be moved to a more discreet area of the park. Number 2, Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles hosted a roundtable yesterday in Waterloo, meeting with students, workers, and advocates about the issues impacting post-secondary education in Ontario. Stiles says cutting billions from colleges and universities puts the future of the next generation at risk, while investing in post-secondary education means investing in a stronger workforce, which is how we strengthen Ontario. Now, meantime, today's Waterloo Region Record is reporting that international enrollment at Conestoga College has dropped by 62%. Number 3 on our Farwell Show 5 this morning. This is what I alluded to a moment ago. A first for this show. About ding-dang time after 8 years, eh? Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger. I'm not saying it's about time that Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger came on the show. She's been on before, but this is going to be a slightly different appearance as Ms. Chagger hosts a roundtable with you today. The 4-term Liberal MP will be in studio with us today from 11 until noon, taking your questions about the federal government and her work in our community. Join us for our first ever Ask Your MP segment today from 11 until 12. And if you can't call in then with your question, you can email me, mike@570news.com, and we'll see if we can get that question answered for you. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada's trade war with the United States will weigh on all provinces' spending plans this year, but a new report sees those budgets getting closer to balance by the end of the decade. The Conference Board of Canada expects all provinces to post a deficit this year as governments put aside money for contingency plans to navigate U.S. tariffs. The trade war also expected to dry up tax revenues for 2024 due to lost jobs and lower corporate profits. And number 5, a Kitchener hockey star headed back to Boston. Lauren Gable has signed another 1-year deal with the PWHL's Boston Fleet. Gable is a 2-time NCAA hockey champion with Clarkson University, and this will be her 3rd season with the Fleet. Gable was taken in the 4th round of the inaugural PWHL draft. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, it's your morning wake-up call, and maybe, just maybe, I mean, you think we've got problems with speed cameras here in the region of Waterloo? It ain't just us. But maybe, just maybe, the mayor of Guelph has an idea that could calm us down a little bit as the speed cameras attempt to calm down our driving. I'll tell you what the mayor of Guelph is putting forward as an idea around speed cameras on your morning wake-up call. It's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The people that we report to at radio stations, our bosses, usually have the title of program director. I used to work for one such boss, and his usual joke was, everyone's a program director. In other words, everybody's got advice as to how he could do his job better or how the radio station could sound better, etc., etc. I'm going to put Albert in that category. Everyone's a program director. Because Al, do you mind if I call you Al? Albert sends me an email to mike@570news.com. Says, clickbaiting doesn't work on the radio. Knock it off. So here's the thing, Al. What are our bosses, our program directors, the people that decide how radio stations operate these days, what they tell us is one of the most important things that we can do is give you a little tease of a story so that you stick around and listen for the story. We're not clickbaiting. This is true stuff. It's not just something to get you to click on something that's fake. It's just in hopes of getting you to listen. Am I sharing too much information about how we do things around here or how I personally go about doing things on the show? That program director from way back and program directors to this day keep telling me the same thing. Give people a reason to stick around just a little bit longer. Speaking of knocking it off, Al, if you don't like what you hear, there's a button on that radio. You go right ahead and use it, pal, anytime that you want. But I told you before the break, and this is sincere stuff, that maybe, just maybe, the mayor of Guelph has an idea. He is putting forward this proposal that would calm us all down around the speed camera situation, because you know as well as I do, these things have been controversial, to say the very least, right? They operate a whole heck of a lot more from where I'm sitting, like a cash grab, like a revenue generator, than they do a public safety technology. Nonetheless, what the mayor of Guelph is asking is whether or not there might be a different method of going about and getting this behavioral change we're looking for on the roads without hitting people in the pocketbook. For example, how about a warning the first time that you are issued an infraction? So you get the notice in the mail. It says, you were driving 47 in a 40 zone, you naughty boy. And then we're not going to ticket you this time. Just be aware that you went through this speed camera zone at this speed on this day at this time, and you ought not do that because there's a speed camera there. What has happened with these speed cameras, as you probably know, is they get implemented or they get moved around because various jurisdictions, much like ours, have a limited number of cameras as the rollout expands, so the cameras get rotated around. And sometimes you can be issued, I shared this story before, a neighbor of ours has a coworker, works in the Fergus area, where there's a very active camera, catches a lot of speeders, and she got ticketed 9 times from the same camera. But it's because the tickets, there's a little bit of a delay, so you keep driving that road, not paying attention, whatever the case may be. 9 tickets. The mayor of Guelph says, hey, people are struggling right now with affordability. Maybe, just maybe, we could give them a warning the first time as opposed to hitting them in the pocketbook right off the hop. It's not a bad idea. Guelph Council is, or the staff of the city of Guelph is now looking into this to see if it's feasible at all. Remember a couple of other things in the Greater Toronto area. Vaughan, for example, has paused its speed camera program entirely, a report coming back in the fall, because the camera that was implemented in Vaughan issued so many tickets in such a short amount of time. So they've pressed pause on the whole program. And then in Brampton, there is a petition that's circulating asking that all speed cameras be removed from city streets. So keep that in mind. I want to thank Scott for this email to mike@570news.com. He says that he received this text message. He's warning us about it as well. Looks like a new fraud, Scott says via email, targeting the speed cameras. And he shared with me the text that he received. It's alleged that it's coming from Service Ontario. Our system speed camera shows your radar ticket still hasn't been paid. To avoid any loss of demerit points, pay by this date. And then, of course, there is a link. You may be prosecuted and your credit score may be affected. Pay now by clicking this link. Do not, under any circumstances, click that link. Your ticket will come in the mail. That's the only thing you have to deal with. Be aware of these malicious links because people are trying to get at your personal information. So if you feel as though the speed cameras are a scam, thanks to Scott for making us aware of the scam on top of the speed camera scam. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Al, brace yourself because 1 in 4 Canadians who are currently working from home say if they get called back to the office, they're going to quit. Say, what? Like, when did... I'll share the results of this study coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I am utterly unsurprised at this new Angus Reid survey that shows us that almost 60% of Canadians responding say they would prefer working from home most of the time. Well, of course they would prefer that, right? Now, among those in this survey who have worked from home or are currently still working from home, that percentage jumps up to 76%. So 3 out of 4 of us currently working from home say, yeah, I'd prefer this all the time. Again, that doesn't surprise me in the least. But in case you missed it, the movement is afoot to get people back to the office. In fact, it's being mandated in much of corporate Canada, much of corporate North America. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school because not long after we got the internal email here at Rogers, I saw a story in the paper about the return to office protocol that we are in the midst of here as a company. And this fall, it will be back to 4 days a week. And then by early 2026, it will be back in the office full time. That's why Angus Reid did this survey and found out that those who are getting called back are not all that happy about it. More than half said they were upset or very upset about the return to the office, and only 17% were pleased. Now, you got to think about this. Of course, it goes back to pandemic times, right? If you go back to 2016, about a decade ago, only 7% of people worked from home. But during the pandemic, 40% of Canadians spent most of their working hours at home. Right now, we're down to about 20%, so 1 in 5, but hybrid work has risen. So you're doing some days at home and some days in the office. I just find this to be a really strange phenomenon. By all means, we should take advantage of technology. We should make accommodations where possible, where necessary, give people some flexibility. But this whole notion that you should not go to work, like the whole phrase go to work is about going somewhere to do your job. And I don't think it's necessarily about being monitored so the boss can watch you 24 or 8 hours a day while you're in the office. It's just that it's what you signed up to do. If you don't like your commute, well, find a job closer to home, I guess. I just find the whole concept a little bit strange. Of course we should go to work. There's an energy that comes with it. There's a collaboration that comes with it. There is some socialization, which is really important. You might get to know your coworkers a little bit. What a great idea. But of the employees who are currently working from home, only 28% say they'll go back to the office without complaint. So they'll go, but they're not going to like it. 32% said they'd go back and consider other options. And 1 in 4 said they would likely quit because they can't work from home anymore. I'll just chalk this up to things that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. An update from the 570 News Center, and then 3 ways to end chronic homelessness. We'll talk about them coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers. As I'm sure you know, Canada's federal housing advocate, not exactly thrilled with Waterloo Region's plans to remove residents from an encampment at the corner of Reber and Victoria Streets in Kitchener. This encampment to be cleared by the end of the year, but Marie-Josée Houle has sent a letter to our regional government expressing her concern with those plans to clear the encampment by the end of the year. And maybe, just maybe, this is just the very beginning of the conversation. We did cover that on the show last week. This morning, we welcome former MP for Kitchener Centre, Mike Morris, to the program. Mike, good to talk to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back on.
Do you think that in our conversations around the open letter issued by Ms. Houle, we might be missing another element of this story around encampments?
Yeah, it's why I appreciate having me on again, Mike, and it's why I wrote an op-ed in the Record this past weekend, is that, yeah, we should also be talking about the responsibility that all levels of government have to help address the reason why encampments have popped up in the first place. The point-in-time count from last year, and pulling up the numbers now, it's 2,300 people who are living unsheltered in Waterloo Region. That's up from just over 1,000 in 2021, which was up from just over 300 or so in 2018. And so if we're going to talk about encampments, we should also be talking about what led us to this place, why are we here, and what can we do to address the underlying issues.
So you suggest 3 ways that we could end chronic homelessness, and maybe these could be implemented almost immediately. Let's start with the definition of affordable housing. How could fixing that definition help us end chronic homelessness?
Yes, Mike, this is work that my team and I worked on when I was the MP for Kitchener Centre, and in fact worked with Marie-Josée Houle and others in the research on this. The short version is that as of today, the federal government isn't using its own definition for affordable housing when it funds projects that are meant to build housing that folks can afford. That definition is that housing should be no more than 30% of a person's income. I'll give you an example. There's a fund called the Affordable Housing Fund or something along those lines. It's a $15 billion fund, but in that fund, 80% of the units that a developer could build using that money, they can charge whatever they want. And for the remainder of the units, the only criteria is that the units have to be no more than 80% of market average rent. That isn't the definition of affordable housing. Market average rents, of course, in our community have skyrocketed in recent years. And so one of the things we could do tomorrow is, even just with the existing funds that the federal government is already putting out to build so-called affordable housing, let's require them to use their own definition of affordable, so that when the federal government uses our money to build affordable housing, it results in a supply of homes that folks in our community can actually afford. It's a motion I put forward when I was the MP in the last session of Parliament. Elizabeth May has reintroduced it in this session of Parliament. The federal government could take that motion tomorrow and require across the board, when they spend money on affordable housing, it turns into homes we can actually afford.
Which is geared to that 30% of one's income as opposed to 80% of market rate.
Well, yeah, because who cares what the market rate is? What matters is what is a person bringing in their income every month. If it is more than, if you're spending more than 30% of the money you bring in per month, we've all already agreed that that means you are in a position of what's called core housing need. That means the housing you're in is not affordable for you because you can't afford the rest of life, groceries and everything else, if your housing is taking up more than 30% of your income. To me, what I tried to do as an MP was to propose things that were viable to move ahead on. In this case, we don't even have to sell them on the definition. The definition is already in place. All we need to do is have them stop using these other criteria that someone else has come up with, and have them come back to that same definition, use it uniformly across the board so that the existing funds, we're not even talking about new funds at this point, the existing federal money. But keep in mind, when we talk about the federal government, this is tens of billions of dollars that we could and should be redirecting to build truly affordable homes.
Okay, what role do REITs or real estate investment trusts play in this problem?
Well, they're one of many examples of large corporate landlords that, in some cases, are leading to renovictions in our community. If you're a large corporate landlord, your interest is making the most money possible off your assets. If your asset is housing, well, you're going to look to what they call reposition, which means renovating, renovicting, and increasing rents. And many of these large corporate landlords have various tax advantages. REITs are just one example. They're a particularly galling example because, as I mentioned in the op-ed, one example of a real estate investment trust is Choice Properties REIT. Well, guess who owns Choice Properties REIT? The Weston family. This is the landlord of Loblaws. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that Loblaws doesn't need a tax break and that Galen Weston doesn't need a tax break. Well, he's getting one in the form of the tax break for real estate investment trusts. So again, when I was an MP, I put forward another motion that said let's end that tax break as one example of many that these large corporate landlords have access to, and let's use those funds. I think it's important when we talk about spending, we're talking about where the money is coming from. Here's an example of where the money could come from. You and I are funding Choice Properties REIT to get a tax break. If we ended that, we could generate almost $300 million, and we could put that money towards building more supportive housing. In the op-ed, I give an example. Right across the street from the encampment, the Working Center is building Making Home, 44 units of supportive housing designed to be there for folks who have experience living unsheltered. Well, we could fund more working centers to bring more Making Homes to communities in Waterloo Region and across the country by getting rid of these kinds of tax breaks for REITs and for other large corporate landlords who, in my view, haven't justified why we're helping fund their profits.
Okay, so we could end the tax break for REITs. We could fix the definition of affordable housing. We said there were 3 solutions here to end chronic homelessness, but I'm up against the clock, Mike. Can I impose on a little bit more of your time to stick around?
I'd be happy to, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Mike Morris is with us. He's the former MP for Kitchener Centre. He's got 3 proposed solutions to end chronic homelessness. Let's fix the definition of affordable housing. Let's remove incentives for large corporate landlords who profit off housing. And we can also do this, which we'll talk about as we continue our conversation with Mike Morris this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Mike Morris is a name that you know well. The former MP for Kitchener Centre wrote an op-ed that appeared in our weekend Waterloo Region Record, putting forward 3 ways to end chronic homelessness. We're in conversation with Mike about that op-ed this morning. Among the ways, we can fix the definition of affordable housing. We can remove the incentives for large corporate landlords who profit off housing. And one more for us to tackle as we continue our conversation with Mike Morris this morning. And that is, Mike, you say funding affordable housing the way we used to. What changed here?
Well, the key part of that, Mike, is the way we used to. So let's go back a few decades. Back in the 1970s, the federal government funded or helped with bringing forward 40% of all housing starts across the country. And that's what led to, if you drive around Waterloo Region, you'll see housing co-ops, for example. Almost all of them were built in the 1970s and 1980s. As of the 1990s, around 1995, the federal government and provincial government both pulled out of building affordable housing. And what that has led to is, some order of like 93% of all affordable housing in Ontario was built before 1995. And so this crisis we're talking about of both a lack of affordable housing and people experiencing homelessness, this didn't happen overnight. This really is decades and decades in the making. The good news is that others have already studied it and looked at the specific dollar amount we would need to spend to get back to addressing the underlying issues when it comes to the homelessness crisis, and that is having the federal government getting back into building more housing. It's got a price tag. To cut chronic homelessness in half, it would take $3.5 billion a year. And the year that the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, looked at this, the current spending was around $561 million. So it's a 7-fold increase in spending on homelessness programs across the country. It is as a result, of course, of those 3 decades of underinvestment. We have been way behind for 30 years now. The other point I bring up in the op-ed, for those who might be a bit sticker shocked at $3.5 billion, you might remember last December, our Prime Minister was in a bit of an electoral pickle. The polling numbers weren't looking so well. And so he came up with this idea. He was going to he's calling it the Working Canadians rebate. Everyone's going to get a check for $200. Well, that idea, that was going to cost us $4.7 billion. And so I raise that to say that it seems like our political leaders find the money when it's politically advantageous to them. And I would put forward, if we do care about solving the homelessness crisis, well, we need to redirect the existing money we're spending to build the affordable housing we need. Let's end those tax breaks for those large corporate landlords, but let's also get honest about bringing the spending back to even a fraction of where it was in the 1970s, because the fact is it worked. We didn't have this crisis in the 80s. It was manufactured as a result of underinvestments from provincial and federal governments. Let's take the lead from groups like the PBO that have called out what we need to spend and get back to spending at that level.
From your experience, Mike, because as you outlined this morning, we might call them 3 simple steps to end chronic homelessness, because you brought forward the motion around focusing on the federal government's own definition of affordability, removing those tax breaks. You also brought forward that motion, redirecting the money that we're already spending to fund affordable housing the way we used to. What has held us back from doing this?
Well, it's not that we don't know how to do it. It's that it takes political will. I'll give you an example on the REITs. Well, guess who pushed back when people like me were saying they should start paying their taxes? The REITs. They created a website. They called it foraffordable.ca. They called themselves the Canadian Rental Housing Providers for Affordable Housing. That sounds pretty good. Well, when you look at who they are, it's a bunch of REITs, and you look at one of their solutions they propose, would you believe it? One of the solutions is keeping the tax break for the REITs. So you've got some vested interests that are at play. You've got governments that need to be honest about reallocating funds to build the housing we need. And as Canadians, part of why I wrote the op-ed is we need to continue to put the pressure on. Because at the end of the day, if we lose sight of the underlying issues, it makes it more difficult for our political leaders. I can think about myself when I was an MP. When I brought those motions forward, it was in part because so many people in our community had told me that they cared about affordable housing. And so only if we keep our sights on these underlying issues will we create the political will amongst our MPs and our MPPs to do the right thing, to turn away from these vested interests that are trying to distract us and to get at the core issue that we've all already identified.
Mike, I really appreciate you making time for the conversation this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Likewise, Mike. These are the conversations we need to have, and we have them on your show. So thanks for having me back on again.
Anytime at all. Take care.
You too.
Mike Morris, former MP for Kitchener Centre, joining us to talk about his 3 seemingly simple steps to end chronic homelessness. The third of those, getting back into the business of building affordable housing, may be something that the federal government is moving towards. And by the way, it wasn't just the regional government that got a letter from the federal housing advocate. One of our lower tier municipalities received one as well. We'll talk about it as we continue the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just following up on the conversation we just had with former MP Mike Morris about 3 simple steps to end chronic homelessness. One of them being Canada kind of getting back into the home building business. And that was something Prime Minister Carney did talk about during the election campaign. I mentioned this on our show yesterday. The Build Canada Homes Initiative, which would involve the government acting as a developer to build affordable housing and offering low-cost financing to affordable housing builders. It's been kind of put on the back burner while we deal with trade issues, but a spokesperson within the federal government says it's still on track to launch the Build Canada Homes Initiative this fall. So something to keep our ears open for, certainly. And also, it wasn't just the regional government that got a stern letter from the federal housing advocate, Marie-Josée Houle. She also sent a letter to the city of Cambridge earlier in July expressing concern over plans to evict encampment residents in extreme heat. Nonetheless, those evictions did happen in mid-July when the temperature was up around 40 degrees with the humidex, and the federal housing advocate not at all pleased with the city of Cambridge either for its efforts around dealing with encampments. Let's go to the phones, hear from you. Alex, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'll try and make this really fast. The problem is there's why are the people there, right? Number one, you've got 3 groups. One is the mentally ill, that they used to be housed in the mental institutions. That's not the case anymore. Number 2 is the people that have had just bad luck. Life kicked them in the teeth, and they need some help. Those people used to be looked after by the churches. Now it's the government. Number 3, and this is probably the biggest portion of the people, are the drug addicts and people that really do love the lifestyle. They just do because of the freedom or whatever it is they like about it. Those used to be handled by the law. Now the institutions are closed. The churches, the government's taken over from them, and that's where the problem really started because all the money started pouring in. And because of that, the law can't do their job, and so they're allowed to stay. If you want to look what what your debt solutions lead to, even more so than now. Look to California, look to San Francisco, look to LA. They pour more money into that situation than anywhere else in the world. And the results are the worst in the world.
All right, I got to get to the news center for an update. The only point I would really push back on is the idea of people who are addicted to substances, that being a law enforcement issue. I think it's far more connected to healthcare. I'm not sure anybody gets up one morning and decides they want to be addicted to substances. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Did you hear the one about the car crash that resulted in several different tow trucks showing up to it? And there was such competition over who would get that tow that a couple of the drivers of those tow trucks got into a fight. Regional police, this was not a joke. This happened on the streets of Cambridge just last week. Regional police laying 21 charges in total against the drivers and their companies, leaving one to wonder what in HE double hockey sticks happened here and how might we be able to prevent it in the future. Gary Vandenheuvel is the president of the Professional Towing Association of Ontario and joins us for a conversation. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
How does something like this happen, that there are so many different tow operators showing up to the same collision?
Well, unfortunately, it's a game of, it's called chasing down tows in cities, and the goal is to obviously obtain a tow, a police-ordered tow, an accident call, because in some situations they can be fairly lucrative. So there are towers out there that's their sole game is to be chasers.
How do they get this information that allows them to chase? Are they monitoring, radio channels and things like that?
Yeah, they do monitor when they have the availability to monitor police radios. They will monitor police radios. They will monitor apps. Things like Waves and Google will show accident scenes, so they'll monitor that sort of stuff. The fire EMS, if they have to, they'll monitor those stations as well. So they have multiple areas that they can look. They also have spotters in areas that will call them and let them know that there's an accident at a certain location. So yeah, it's lots of different ways that they try to find these accidents.
I think we could discuss the ethics of, let's say, an out-of-region towing company chasing into this region and maybe impacting the business of local tow operators. But even beyond that, Gary, I wonder about the legality. Is this allowed under the Highway Traffic Act?
No, it's not. There are new rules in place, and the Highway Traffic Act has always been specific that tow truck operators and tow trucks cannot come onto these scenes. And they have to stay 200 meters away from a scene. So, when they enter, they're actually breaking the law.
So how can we combat this? What needs to change?
Well, there's a number of areas that need to change, we believe. One, I think we'll start with why is it happening in the Kitchener-Waterloo area? Well, changes were made in the GTA, and they went with tow zones on the 400 series highways, and they vetted companies, and they put only certain companies having the ability to tow in those areas. They have a structure, they have the proper equipment, they have a pricing guideline, and they follow those rules. And when that happened, the chase companies were removed from those areas. And what happened then was now they started to leave that area, and basically they're commuting from their areas in the GTA now into closer regions, bigger regions like Kitchener, where they know that there are, availability tows and things that they can still chase and do. So the market got smaller for them in the GTA, so they just expanded out to different areas, and that's why they're there for that. How do you stop this? Well, it certainly is difficult, but if you're involved in an accident, I think the first thing is if obviously somebody's coming up to you and soliciting a tow from you, you should be very wary about it. I know that in your region there, they do have vetted tow companies through the police departments. And what I would suggest is certainly if you've been involved in an accident, call the police. And if you need a tow truck, inform them that you need a tow truck and have them call one of their vetted companies. At that point, my understanding for that area is both the police department will take your phone number. They should tell you who will be responding. They'll know who's next on the list. They will call that company, and my understanding, that company will now call you on your phone. You should receive a text also from the police department as to who will be responding to that call. And that way you know at least you have a vetted company through the local police department that is following the rules and the standards of that area.
Yeah, because the real challenge here, of course, as I'm sure you recognize, is that somebody who's just been involved in a collision is in a pretty vulnerable state. They've got a lot going on, and then all of a sudden there might be multiple tow trucks showing up to the scene, and they're not exactly sure what to do about it.
And that's exactly the case, right? You're involved in an accident, stressful, and that's the last thing you need to know. And the profession or need to have happen is people showing up. Can I tow your car? Can I tow your car? And then you're confused. They're having you sign paperwork, documentation, and it's really not how things should happen on the side of the road. We believe that true vetted companies will come out once the police call you out or call those companies out. They're going to follow that standard. So it becomes very difficult for a consumer sitting on the side of the road when they're under all this pressure. It doesn't happen to people on a regular basis, right? People get in an accident maybe once or twice in their lifetime. So yeah, it's confusing. It's you don't know what to do, and these guys are really smooth at what they do, and they get in there and get your car on you. So I think your best bet, as I said, is to make sure you're following with the police ordered tows.
You talked earlier, Gary, about those changes in the GTA, and I remember even Premier Ford weighing in on this over the years about, thugs, organized crime, the sorts of things that were plaguing the industry. And bluntly, I know a number of the players in the local towing industry, one of them very well, and these are good people trying to do good work. What does this do, though, to the reputation of the industry?
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, right? The majority of people that are in our industry are good people, working hard, just doing this to make a living. And towing isn't cheap by any means, but these people are honest about what they do and go out and do these calls. But unfortunately, what happens again is when people like this show up, it makes it tough on the good people, right? It gives us a black eye when situations like this occur. But fortunately, we're working with the MTO, and the group is to see it's the Towing and Safety Storage and Enforcement Act. And our association is working hand in hand with them as we speak. We're having meetings, and we're doing our best to try and find ways of eliminating this kind of tower within our industry. And it is becoming successful, but it does take time. It's well embedded in our industry. But kudos to the Ford government and the OPP and everybody. The police forces are working collaboratively with everybody to try and get this rooted out. And it is starting to happen. We are starting to see success in other areas. London was a key area where they had chasing going on for years. Police department, MTO got involved and started pushing hard back on these chasers in that area, and they've done a great job of removing the majority of the chasers in London. And I think you'll find that probably the Waterloo region will have to do the same. The police departments will have to start enforcing the act on these people and start laying charges and as they did in this particular case. And I think once they start doing this, you start making it difficult to tow in the areas where guys do it legitimate and guys don't. When you make it difficult on the bad guys, they tend to go away.
Gary, really appreciate you making time for the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Gary Vanden Heuvel is the president of the Professional Towing Association of Ontario. It's not easy work by any stretch of the imagination. And I know for certain, because I know them personally, many people in the industry, in this community, who are doing that hard work the right way. But there's no doubt that the towing industry as a whole has a bit of a problem right now. What was your most recent experience like? If you needed a tow, what happened? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
And I think you'll find that the Waterloo region will have to do the same. The police departments will have to start, enforcing the act on these people and start laying charges and as they did in this particular case. And I think once they start doing this, you start making it difficult to tow in the areas where guys do it legitimate and guys don't. When you make it difficult on the bad guys, they tend to go away.
We politely call them chasers. I've long referred to them, as I saw them waiting along the 401 corridor, as vultures. But these are tow truck operators who pounce, almost literally, on the scene of a collision, trying to get that sometimes lucrative tow. But there are rules in place meant to prevent this. And last week in Cambridge, we had a pretty good dust-up between the tow truck operators when so many responded to one crash. What's your experience been? That was Gary Vanden Heuvel, by the way, the president of the Professional Towing Association of Ontario. Let's go to the phones here from you. Rick, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. Another day above ground.
Attaboy. Is this the first time you've ever called the show, Rick?
Yes, it is.
Yeah! Yes! Yes!
I love that. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. And I enjoy listening to you guys at the Rangers game.
Oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate that.
Hey, what the story is my wife had an accident down by Pushton's golf course, and young OPP officers showed up, and before the paramedics showed up, 2 tow trucks pulled up. And she went back from talking to my wife and said, I told you vultures yesterday not to show up. Now get out of here. And they left.
Just like that, eh?
Oh, they almost run back to their car, yeah.
So it does happen, and in this case, though, the police officer was already there to intervene.
Yes, and she'd been there, told them the day before in an accident. I guess they figured she wasn't going to be there, so show up.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad it all worked out on your end, Rick. Thank you very much.
Well, you have a great day, Mike, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much, sir. And hey, don't be a stranger. You're welcome to be a second-time caller on the show anytime you want. Paul from Kitchener. Good morning.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Paul.
This happened a couple of years ago. I was coming back from a fishing tournament up north, and my boat trailer snapped the leaf spring on the bend from the 400 extension to the 11 in the GTA and Barrie area to come get me, to take me home, and nobody did. I called the Kitchener tow truck company. They drove a flatbed up, came up and got me, took me back home, and dropped me off at my mechanic's to fix the boat trailer. And you know what the guy told me? The local driver, this is the local Kitchener driver, he said to me, I'm not rushing. If it's on my truck, I drive it like I own it. So there was no speeding. He was doing the speed limit. He, did all the right things to get my boat home safe and sound.
Man, am I ever glad to hear that, because having it happen where it happened, Paul, my goodness, that must have been kind of frightening.
It was a over 2 hour wait just for him to show up.
Sure.
Thank goodness the Leaf game was on the radio. I was able to listen.
You got to love the radio. It's always there when you need it, right?
Exactly. But I was so impressed with the local company that did the pickup. Like I say, they dropped it off of my mechanic, and, I had to stop at the rest stop to get a coffee and, bathroom break, what have you. He drove all the way. I actually caught up to him. Imagine this, from Innisfil, I caught up to him at the 400-401 interchange.
There you go.
I mean, he was just driving normal speed, and I followed him all the way home then to collect all my stuff and paperwork and what have you, and pay the bill. No problem. It was a joy to watch that guy drive my vehicle home.
Glad it all worked out for you. Thanks for the call, Paul.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to hear from you today. Some very positive stories, at least in the case of Rick's story. The OPP officer already there to intervene and use that word that I said earlier, vultures. Politely, they're called chasers, but it's a problem right now that plagues the towing industry. And good operators like the one Paul just talked about end up with the same black eye. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I don't know why it took us so ding-dang long to do this, but ding-dang it. We're going to do it today, and it was actually an idea brought forward by the elected representative herself. We were at the same media event, and Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger and I got to chatting after the event, and she said, I want to come on your show. I want to come on your show with open phone lines, and I want to take questions from your audience. And I said, are you really sure? Have you heard my show? Do you know who is in this audience? All 131 of you, I might add. That, of course, I say in jest, because I know that you are the force for good, the force for change, the force to be reckoned with. And as cranky as we sometimes sound, we just want to make things better. And I think it's a unique opportunity to have the ears of one of our local federal government representatives right here in studio with us. And that is happening in just over 30 minutes' time. Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger is going to join us on the show for the hour between 11 and 12 to answer your questions about our federal government, the work that she does in the community. Maybe we can even get a better understanding of how an MP conducts their business in this community and in Ottawa. But if you've got a question for your federal government representative, you can ask it on the show today between 11 and noon when Bardish Chagger is in studio with us. And if you can't make a call at that time, feel free to send me an email, mike@570news.com. Dave has already done that, and we're happy to take your questions via email as well. And we'll ask them of Ms. Chagger when she is here. We're coming up on your 10:30 update in the 570 News Center, and then a conversation about restorative justice and how it may have offered a better path forward for everyone involved in the Hockey Canada trial. Restorative justice, in case you didn't know, is actually an idea that was pioneered right here in the region of Waterloo by a former regional police officer. We're going back darn near 50 years now since this idea was pioneered. The trail blazed right here in the region of Waterloo. And how could it have led to a better outcome for all concerned at the Hockey Canada trial? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The verdict in the Hockey Canada trial last week has led to considerable conversation around our legal system, around issues of consent, and so much more. Jennifer Llewellyn is a professor of law and the chair in the Restorative Justice at Dalhousie University's Schulich School of Law. She's also the director of the university's Restorative Research, Innovation, and Education Lab. And she, too, has a take on that verdict that might lead us in a different direction as she joins the show this morning. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning.
Maybe if we could, please, start with a bit of a primer on restorative justice. When we talk about that, I think we all understand guilty, not guilty, and what came from that verdict last week. But when we talk about restorative justice, what are we talking about?
So Canada has actually been a leader in restorative justice for some time, and people would probably be most familiar with it in terms of how it's been used in youth criminal justice in our country, where it's used as an alternative pathway for responding when young people come in conflict with the law. In my own home province in Nova Scotia, we have had a long-standing, probably the first kind of comprehensive restorative justice program that started with youth and now applies to adults, where at any stage of the criminal process, police, the Crown, the judge, or as part of a sentence, or for victims in terms of responding to their needs, there can be a referral made to community-based agencies who are able to design and hold different kinds of justice processes where in some cases you can bring the various parties together to speak with one another about what happened, what matters about it, what the impacts have been, who's responsible for that, with a really important focus on addressing those needs, but also understanding what needs to happen so such crimes and harms don't continue to happen. And in all those cases, the reason we want community to be engaged and involved is that they can have a broader view of who else needs to be called into those processes to help understand the impacts, but also help take some of the responsibility for what are we learning when bad things happen to create the conditions so that a plan for the way forward might create conditions where less people are harmed in the future.
And as I understand it, Jennifer, this path is actually not available in sexual assault cases, the likes of which we just watched?
That's right. It's not the case. It's because in Canada, those decisions about what's allowable or not to be referred to restorative justice happen at the provincial level. It's not the case that across Canada it's not available. So, for example, Alberta has made this available in some cases and is trying this out. In both Ontario and Nova Scotia, there are bars to being able to refer that. In Nova Scotia, there's a moratorium that applies for police and Crown referrals, not interestingly for judge referrals. And in Ontario, the Crown has taken a position and written instructions in their manual that says that Crown are not allowed to make that option available in cases of sexual assault under the understanding that they're too serious for these for that kind of a referral.
We heard the lawyer for Carter Hart, one of the 5 young men accused in this case, make reference to restorative justice and how the opportunity to pursue that was denied in this case. How, Jennifer, might restorative justice have led us to a better outcome here?
I think in several ways. I mean, for certain, it would be important to have made that an option, right? And so I'm not making the case because I don't know EM, the complainant in this case, or what she would have wished in this circumstance. And so we don't know whether this would have been an important path or a good path for her to have been heard and understood about the experience of that night and of the complexity of that. And of the harms that involved for her. But we do know that it wasn't even an option. And it's interesting in this case that it was sought as a potential option or pathway to pursue, because far from being a way to take this less seriously, I think restorative justice would have offered a pathway to take this more seriously, in the sense that this is not a case that is just about the behavior of a few bad apples in hockey. What we've come to learn really clearly is that this is about a much broader problem in hockey, in sport culture, and in our culture more broadly, around the ways in which we are behaving and acting towards women and in the context of elite sport.
Is this an area, Jennifer, where we could improve what many will, and I think I would be among them, argue is a rather broken legal system in this province?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real opportunity to channel the questions that people are asking, their outrage, their dismay, their disappointment in this process, not because it speaks to that there's no role for law or there's no role for our legal system. There absolutely is. But there's also important questions being raised about the limits of the way we currently undertake those justice processes, particularly where there are complex circumstances that are deeply connected to systemic and institutional kind of harms. So, what the legal system, what the criminal justice system is designed to do is to find an individual or individuals who breach the law, cause harm, blame them, and punish them, and think that will make things better. At every stage of the logic of that, we're failing to understand the nature of the problems and what people need for real justice. And so I think this is a chance to say the criminal justice system just is not designed to deal with these issues where there are other institutions and cultural issues and factors that need to be addressed, other people who have some responsibility. But it's also not designed well to hold to account those individuals who actually did behave badly in a way that's likely to change their behavior for the future. And it is clearly failing and causing further harm to those who come forward to say, something harmed me, something happened to me.
I absolutely think you're onto something here, and really glad you could make time for the conversation this morning. Thank you for being here, Jennifer.
Oh, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Jennifer Llewellyn, professor of law and the chair in the Restorative Justice Program at Dalhousie University's Schulich School of Law. She's also the director of the university's Restorative Research, Innovation, and Education Lab. I've learned a little bit about restorative justice in my time here working in this community. As I mentioned before the news update at 10:30, restorative justice was actually pioneered right here in our community by a former member of the Waterloo Regional Police Service many decades ago. And I really do think this was an opportunity missed by our legal system to allow for, and again, EM, the complainant in this case, would have had to be open to that as well. But the idea for me that the accused and the complainant in this case could, believe it or not, share space in the same room again to talk about the experience of that night. I think it leaves the opportunity then open for those accused to use any platform they have in the future, and it's likely it will be a considerable platform for at least some of the 5 accused, to help mentor others as to the impacts of these behaviors. I was actually quite surprised yesterday, if you were listening, when David Drew was here for Drew's Views. He comes on every Monday morning at 11:30, and he thought the idea of restorative justice in this case was a horrible idea. Why would strangers want to get in the room together and try to hash this out, listen to one another, and then move on with their lives as strangers again forevermore? I think there was an opportunity missed to help shape new behaviors and get to the root of some of these things and have a better understanding of the harms involved. But always interested in your take on things. Did we miss an opportunity here when it comes to restorative justice in the Hockey Canada verdict? Let me know your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The criminal justice system just is not designed to deal with these issues where there are other institutions and cultural issues and factors that need to be addressed. But it's also not designed well to hold to account those individuals who actually did behave badly in a way that's likely to change their behavior for the future. And it is clearly failing and causing further harm to those who come forward to say, something harmed me, something happened to me.
Jennifer Llewellyn, a professor of law from Dalhousie University, joins us this morning to talk about the opportunity missed. And that missed opportunity from the Hockey Canada trial, the verdict from which we received last week, not guilty across the board, misses the chance for those who were accused to understand, while perhaps not fully criminal or not beyond the reasonable doubt of guilt, still brought harm, had a significant impact, obviously, on the complainant, EM, in this case. And where I think restorative justice could have worked so well in this case is the following opportunity then for these young men to use their future platforms, which they will have, to help get to the root of these issues and a better understanding of the impact of these behaviors. As Jennifer Llewellyn writes in a recent op-ed in the Globe and Mail, what we know is the legal conclusion of this case, but all the verdict means is that the accused were not found legally blameworthy beyond a reasonable doubt. It does not declare that there was no harm, no troubling behavior, or no cultural conditions that contributed to what happened. And this is what we've gotten into quite a bit on the show in the last number of days, because it's a thorny thing when you say something like not guilty in a court of law does not equate to innocent. As you hear, and I think Jennifer Llewellyn, the professor of law, puts it pretty well. It just means that the accused were not found legally blameworthy beyond a reasonable doubt. What restorative justice processes can do now is explore different questions like who was harmed, who's responsible, not just legally, but morally as well, culturally, structurally, where we might have issues here, and who needs to be a part of the conversation to better understand what happened and help to ensure that it never happens again. It's not the cop-out that you might think it is. Oh, the eye for an eye crowd, and I get it. I completely understand the eye for an eye crowd, but restorative justice, again, pioneered right here in the region of Waterloo, is not an argument for leniency. Really what it is an argument for understanding. I wish we had taken that path in this particular case, but here we are, and maybe we can use this as the teachable moment, as something we learn from for the next time. Sadly, because we know there's going to be a next time, right? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our 11 a.m. update in the 570 News Center, and Ask Your MP, as Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger joins us in studio for the next 60 minutes. Let's go to the phones, hear from you on the issues of the day. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, Mikey, how's it going, buddy?
Not bad, thanks. How's it going with you?
Good. So I was just commenting about the EM case, and I got a kid in junior hockey, I should say.
I know, I saw that. Congrats, by the way. I think I mentioned it on social, but this is awesome.
Thanks, man. It's such a cool journey, and you know what? I have a soft spot for the young men that are were accused, but also want to be sensitive to the fact that there's something that may have happened that wasn't good. But let's talk about accountability. Should that $3 million that Hockey Canada paid out be given back to Hockey Canada?
Why?
If they were found not guilty?
But Hockey Canada did that all on its own in a civil case. Got nothing to do with the criminal case.
Got it. Okay, so maybe I got my wires crossed. It made me a little bitter because I've been paying those fees for a while now, and as I understand, it came from the rep fee, or the team, or the fees that we pay Hockey Canada every year. So that maybe I was misinformed. I apologize, but again, what's to say about these boys now? Are they ever going to play in the NHL again, or have an opportunity to play?
I think Carter Hart was the only regular NHLer, right? As I recall. Either way, I don't think, Ryan, it's going to impact their careers at all, personally.
I honestly hope it doesn't. I really don't. And again, you want to stay. I tell my boys, stay away from situations like that. You got a game the next day, you're not drinking. You get in the hotel room, you go to sleep, right?
Well, and this is the thing, right? And this is where I really wish some sort of restorative justice program had been available here, because what you're talking about is what you're instilling in your young man who's playing the game. Clearly, there were bad decisions made all around in this. And I think removing oneself from any possibility of this happening is our best path forward here.
I could not agree more. I mean, it's you're there to play hockey, right? Everything else is a side bet. Everything is, you get a nice girl, whatever. Just do right, be a good person, and score some goals.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
All right, brother. Good to chat with you. We'll see you around, eh?
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the call. Good to hear from you today. And just because Ryan brought up Hockey Canada and how cheesed he is that it was the fees that he paid for registration for his son all these years, that's where your beef should be. Remember, the former executive at Hockey Canada created this slush fund all by themselves and then paid it out here, there, and in other places out of the fees that you paid to register your own child for hockey. It's quite frankly appalling that the organization did this and that the organization as Hockey Canada continues to exist today. I'm not saying dismantle hockey at the grassroots level in this country. I'm thinking at minimum, couldn't we just rebrand? Could we get rid of the name Hockey Canada and turn it into something else? You remember those parliamentary hearings when Hockey Canada was rightly and deservingly blasted for this. And you as a hockey parent, if you paid those fees, should also be very upset at Hockey Canada. I would like to think the organization now under its new leadership can find a better path forward itself. All right, let's get you to the 570 News Center for that update. And then let's welcome Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger into the studio to take your calls about your federal government and how it works in this community. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I said it earlier in the show, and I will say it again. It's about ding-dang time. And it's not you, Ms. Chagger. It's me.
Bardish
Chagger, I will, the rest of the way. MP for Waterloo joins us in studio for Ask Your MP. You can have your questions answered about how a federal government representative operates in our community and in Ottawa when you're there serving on behalf of this community. But when I say, Bardish, that it's about time, I mean, it's 8 years I've been on this show, and we've never done anything like this before. I probably should have asked, but we had a conversation at a recent event in Waterloo, and you said, I want to do this, and here we are. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
How's your summer going?
Most people think that the elected officials have the summer off.
Yeah, it's a break, right? You're just like a teacher.
Never been busier. I was actually just going through the weekend and the number of events we had because it's important to engage, and that means a lot to me. So I've not had a breakaway, I'll be honest. I did take 3 days at a friend's cottage, but I worked the whole time, crushed the inbox, so got a lot of responses done. But there's nothing better than a little bit of a view of a lake and taking a moment to step outside of the community to really appreciate what Waterloo has to offer.
So one of the things that I really wanted to dive into here today as we get underway, and as mentioned, phone lines are open. Paul, we'll get to your call in just a second. And if you want to ask Bardish a question, you can do that. 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. But we ran into one another at a KW Titans game before the last federal election. And I was giving you the gears. I'm like, why are you still on this sinking ship? Get off. Like, you've done your 3 terms. Great job. And you, even then, to your credit, because some of your colleagues had decided to get off the sinking ship and then some came back on, but that's a whole other story. Why did you still have enough faith in your job, in this government, whatever it was, to stay on board? And this was before Justin Trudeau even walked away.
So I am a person of faith, but I think it's the fight that I have in me. And I really do believe as much as the world needs more Canada, Canada needs more Waterloo. And when I talk about Waterloo, I talk about the region, 3 cities, 4 townships. And we need people who understand the system and can fight for our community. And we've actually done well when it comes to the federal dollars coming back to this community. So strategic investments so that we can actually grow. If Canada wants a strong economy, they need Waterloo to have a strong local economy. And that's what I'll keep fighting for.
How much different is it now with Mark Carney as the leader than it was when Justin Trudeau was the leader?
So I'll say Prime Minister Mark Carney has been great to speak with. He knows the Waterloo region community well. Even during his campaign, he stopped by here. It was the first place that he had a rally in the whole country because he, I think, appreciates what Waterloo has to offer. What's different is that we're getting back to the conversations about policy and what a federal government should be doing, what the different levels of government do. Prior to that, a lot of that conversation had felt a little bit like high school, where it was personal attacks against the Prime Minister. Most of the policies that the previous government under the leadership of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau advanced, no one's criticizing. If anything, we're hearing about pharmacare. It might actually not grow. It's going to stay where it was at, the agreements that were signed. It might be that that's where we're at a standstill. We won't undo anything that was done, but we might not build upon it. So today I've got people in my inbox saying, hey, we need to do more of that. And Justin Trudeau might have. And right now we have a new government, a new prime minister, and there is a different focus because of just the situation between ourselves and the United States of America, as well as like a lot of what's happening in the world. And so what is Canada's role and how do we ensure that we are addressing those needs?
Is the leadership style different?
So for me, it's always about Waterloo. So it actually doesn't matter who's around me. I just need to make sure that they understand what Waterloo has to offer. And so that's where I've been in pitch mode, to make sure that any portfolio, any minister, new or returning, any colleague from across the country knows what our community has to offer. So I'm just making sure they know that they're invited to come, check us out, kick the tires, but they'll only be able to learn from this community. And our community does not compete against Canadians. We compete against the world. So if other communities are doing great things, we want to learn from them too.
All right. So what does Waterloo have to offer? When you say the world needs more Canada and Canada needs more Waterloo, what do we need more of?
So if you talk about industry, it's all right here, right? So you got your insurance headquarters still based out of here. You have manufacturing still alive and well. Many communities do not offer manufacturing like we do, but we still have that kind of work. A lot of it is automated, but it just reminds you that automation's not a bad thing. You'll always need people to program that automation, so it's important. Waterloo is an innovative community, so whether it comes to our tech community, whether it comes to the fact that in the justice system, you were just talking about it, restorative justice, we are a barn-raising community. We know that when our neighbors do well, we do well. And so there is a caring and a compassion in this community that I believe is unlike any other. And until I was elected in 2015 and I went to the House of Commons to meet people from across the country, MPs from across the country, it really made me realize that here, yes, we have our challenges. Yes, people have tough conversations. But at the end of the day, the humanity is there, and we can find the best in people because we will work alongside anyone who wants to work with us.
Okay. Small talk is out of the way. I was serious that I was giving Bardish a very hard time at that basketball game. We even then got into budgets. Oh my goodness, we're supposed to be watching basketball? No. And I'm like, get off this sinking ship. I don't know what you're still doing. You're running again. She said she was going to. Not only did she run again, but she won handily again, now into her fourth term.
That's the people at Waterloo. That's not me.
Bulletproof Bardish was the nickname that somebody gave you. I'm not sure who. Okay, maybe it was me. Untouchable.
No.
Well, we'll see who runs against you next time.
Hey, listen, I think democracy is important and people need to run. We're having a whole different conversation in the by-election that's happening right now. Kudos to my team. And we ran a really good ground game. We knocked on a lot of doors. And the people of Waterloo had really tough conversations. And I'll tell you that it was not a matter of people saying, yeah, Bardish, we're voting for you. It was a matter of people understanding what the issues are and looking to who was going to fight for them.
Bardish Chagger in studio with us, taking your questions. It's Ask Your MP time on the Mike Farwell Show. We'll get to the phones right after this on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are in studio this morning with Bardish Chagger, Liberal MP for Waterloo, just elected to her fourth term, and spending the hour with us taking your questions. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll go to the phones and start with Paul. Paul, good morning. What's your question for Bardish Chagger?
Good morning, Mike. I hope everybody's enjoying the heat and humidity in the city while I sit out here at a primitive campsite enjoying life.
I'm sure you are. Now, Paul, I know you like to pontificate, so the sooner you get to your question, the better.
Quick. Okay. Last week in July, first week in August are the typical prime vacation, summer vacation. Now, I know, Mike, you took your vacation the other day. I'm on my vacation now. I booked a campsite, primitive campsite, back in the wintertime, sorry. Because it is hard to get a campsite. This year, right now, there are so many vacant sites here. Camping has got to be one of the most...
This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
That was a mistake, Paul. Sorry. So, okay, lots of campsites available. Please, to the question.
Camping is one of the most inexpensive things for a young family to take their kids out, to get them out of the city and enjoy life. Why has camping now become a way of life for people as opposed to a vacation?
All right, I get it. So we're talking about encampments that came up on the show earlier today, Bardish. We know that upper levels of government have a responsibility here. How would you respond to Paul?
So I'm going to go twofold. I'll go to the substance first in regards to encampments. Waterloo Region was one of 8 or 9 communities in the entire province who received federal funding to ensure that people have a safe and affordable place to call home. The federal government was not able to sign an agreement with the province of Ontario. And so rather than just say Ontario's out, there was 8 or 9 communities chosen, and Waterloo Region was one of them. That's some of the advocacy we did to ensure that we are actually dealing with the issues, and our friends on the street deserve a safe and affordable place to call home. We really need to be mindful of the needs of these individuals because they're people, and to me, they matter. In regards to the camping as a vacation, yes, more people should be camping, and we have the Canada Strong Pass. So I think right now is an opportunity to go look at national parks, to look at campsites, and just actually be able to enjoy the outdoors. It is very hot. We know that we're in a heat wave, so I would just encourage people to hydrate. Hydration does not start the day of. It starts days in advance. So please do hydrate. Make sure you're consuming the H2O, anything with electrolytes. And if you see someone else like just having health challenges, take a moment to make sure that they have a glass of water or that they are okay.
I thought you might take the opportunity to promote that Parks Pass, which is terrific. I love it. I'm with Paul in the advantages that being in nature offers. But back to the point on homelessness. Can the federal government do more, Bardish? Because I personally think it can.
We always can do more. The challenge is that Canada is a federation, right? So I was not there. I was not one of the 36 people who negotiated our federation. The reality is that different levels of government have different responsibilities. And I'll tell you, under Justin Trudeau, love him or hate him, we went into a lot of space that was not federal jurisdiction. So people will often say, don't put it on someone else. Take some ownership, be a leader. I agree. Justin agreed. And we did. We entered a lot of those spaces in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, that is the global health pandemic that we all know and still remember. The federal government stepped up to say, just make sure people are safe. We'll foot that bill, right? So it's one taxpayer. It's important that different levels of government work together, but we don't get to make the decisions that the province is able to make. So what the federal government has been doing through the National Housing Strategy is not only providing your federal tax dollars to provinces, but we started providing them to the region as well as to our cities, our municipalities. So if you look at the Waterloo region, the Housing Accelerator Fund, our community did very well. The city of Waterloo is going to be putting up buildings that are historic. Unprecedented, I should say. No one has partnered with Habitat for Humanity like this. This is going to be affordable housing inventory that will remain in our community for generations to come. So even when these individuals are able to move on, it will remain housing that is affordable for the day and the time that we are in, the season that we're in. In regards to encampments, yes, one of 9 communities maybe. Like, I can't tell you the number off the top of my head, but it's not many. So it was 8 or 9, max 11 in Ontario. Waterloo Region was one of them. And I think that speaks to the advocacy here. It speaks to the desire to want to ensure that we're addressing these needs. The federal government also renegotiated the health accord. And what did we do? We brought in mental health and illness. And people said, well, you were not able to negotiate a health accord with all 10 provinces and 3 territories in one hit. And we said we weren't going to do it unless provinces and territories agreed that home care was essential and that mental health and mental illness supports were essential. And that's where the increase came from, because we stayed true to what Canadians are asking for, what people in this community are asking for. And it's important that all levels of government work together.
That Build Now initiative with Habitat for Humanity, certainly one of the instances where the world needs more Waterloo, or Canada needs more Waterloo. It's terrific work being done. And more than 400 municipalities in Ontario, and Waterloo Region being one of just a handful of those 440 that got the funding.
If you're just going to jump in there, because I want to make sure I'm also sharing so that constituents know that I do read their emails and I do hear them. We know that there are concerns in ensuring that the families there will have access to education, will have access to transportation and so forth. Those were some of the requirements prior to the federal money coming. And so we are working with all levels of government to ensure that those needs will be met.
All right, let's go back to the phones. More calls. Mayor Jake, the unofficial mayor of our program, Bardish. Good morning, sir.
Sorry, you mean future mayor.
Future mayor, that's right. You can't wait till you're running in 2026, buddy.
That's right. So my question is, so since 2015, since the Liberals have taken office, there's no secret that crime rate has skyrocketed. And obviously the facts are there. There's no denying that this is happening. But what's the federal government's responsibility here to make sure that our citizens are safe and that these repeat offenders aren't repeating? Because it seems like it's a constant revolving door. And my analogy is if you keep capturing the raccoon and releasing him, he's always going to come back unless you eliminate what the problem is.
All right, Jake, appreciate that call. We touched on restorative justice earlier, Bardish, but bail reform Jake is getting at, and we know public safety is a going concern.
Yeah, I just hope Jake's not referring to the raccoon being the problem that we need to eliminate. I do think we need systems that work. And yes, just yesterday on the news, they were talking about an offender not too far from here who gets charged, gets convicted, and then is out on bail. This is one of those instances, again, where different levels of government need to work better together. The federal government is endeavoring to strengthen bail reform through legislation. We are not the ones who determine who gets bail and who does not. And we do have an independent judicial system that I'm very proud of, and I do have a lot of confidence in. I know we were talking about the Hockey Canada, the EM case, but at the same time, I have confidence in our judicial system, the independence of it. I do believe that justice is blind, and we need good legislation to back it. So the federal government is endeavoring to bring in bail reforms that would assist. The reality is that there's greater need, and we have to ensure that the institutions also exist. And so the number of judges being appointed, how fast are we able to get through the system? What is the hold up to getting through that system? So I'll just give a personal example that I received a speeding ticket a while ago.
Was it a photo radar ticket?
I have one of those too. Just
those
to make
things,
sure.
let me tell you.
We can talk about that another day. I think that's more of a regional issue. But I received a speeding ticket, and I knew it would come in the mail, but it took a really long time to come. And I was concerned that perhaps I had not received it. And I think that there is some issues within the system that we do need to address. Some of it will come with funding. Some of it will come with innovation. And we have access to technology. We have access to different resources that I think we have to be more inclined to accept, but we also have to be mindful of people's privacy and their charter rights and freedoms. And I think that's where sometimes squaring that circle is tough.
Bardish Chagger in studio with us. She is the MP representing Waterloo, and she is taking your questions on the show this morning. Stay with us. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are in studio this morning with Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger, and she is taking your calls here on the show. We've got to get you an update from the 570 News Center, but Pat, hang in there. Robert, Scott, there's still a phone line for you too if you want to have a question answered by MP Chagger, and email is open, mike@570news.com. Unfiltered access to your local federal government representative. Bardish Chagger in studio with us as we continue Ask Your MP on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger joins us in studio this morning. It is Ask Your MP time here on the program. Phone lines are open and they're busy, so I want to get right back to them, get as many questions from you in as possible. Pat, you're on with Bardish Chagger. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike, and good morning, Bardish. How are you two this morning?
Good. Well, I think.
She's nervous now, Pat.
Yeah, she's nervous. Okay. My question is this, and I'm going to go a little bit off topic here. I'm a truck driver, and my question is, has the federal government given any thought to making us a federally regulated trade and skill? The reason I'm asking is, as everybody knows, the trucking industry has a black eye right now due to the rotten 10% of drivers that are out there, and due to scandals in the trucking industry and that there. Will the federal government ever think of turning us into a federally regulated trade and skill? Because we do need a lot of skills, and we do need to have education to drive these things around.
All right, Pat, and thanks for doing what you do. Appreciate it. Bardish, what about it?
I'll first echo, Mike, your comments. Thank you for doing what you do. I actually don't think the 10% should ever, and I don't even know if it's 10%, should represent the drivers, like long haul drivers and even people driving in town do tremendous work. We really realized that during the pandemic. So thank you for what you do. I think there's a lot more people who actually want to be in the industry. So ensuring that they have the training and skills they need to succeed, I think is essential. Having it be federally regulated is not something I've ever thought about, but I welcome the conversation. You're welcome to send my office an email and have the conversation. I would love to hear why you think it should be. So I heard a couple of your points as to why it shouldn't be. A lot of what happens in Canada, the professions and so forth, are provincial. So whether it comes to the associations, whether it comes to the professional associations and so forth, the credential recognition is usually within the provincial umbrella. So I'm not sure what is possible, but I think it's worth a conversation, especially for long haul, especially for anyone who's going through countries and so forth. So I think there is some merit to the conversation, but I do want to just end off by saying to anyone on the road, be mindful of truck drivers and what they're carrying. They carry a lot of weight. It's not easy doing what they do. They put in a lot of hours. They work really hard. If anything, give them a wave. Don't distract them, but definitely don't pull out in front of them and then drop the brakes. It's not cool. It's not okay. And it just causes tension, anxiety, not only for the driver, but everyone around it. So I would just say thanks, Pat, for the work you do.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing forward an interesting talking point, because I recall, Bardish, a conversation with one of the local or provincial trucking safety associations. And I'll tell you what, I see a lot of driver training going on over at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium in my neighborhood. And I'm thinking, okay, you can learn to drive one of those big trucks around here. But what happens when it's mid-January and you're doing long haul out west and you're on the Columbia ice fields in Alberta going up or down a hill? That's a completely different environment. So maybe there is something here to pursue.
And that's why ensuring that the skills trades have the ability, and that's an area the federal government has entered into to ensure that there is possibility and ability for internships and so forth, incentivizing businesses to take these individuals under their wing so that they are trained for any of those circumstances. All right,
Pat, keep the rubber side down, and thanks again for the question. Robert, you're next. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead. What's your question?
I'm calling about the Safe Supply Program in Kitchener. It's a federal program initiated by the federal government. It distributes opioids in our community and other communities across Canada with no controls. These drugs are ending up on our streets. And I have spoken with Helen Fishburne, who is the CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association for Waterloo Wellington, and she has told me that she hasn't seen a single life saved by the Safe Supply Program, in spite of the fact that Safe Supply bills itself as a saver of lives.
Okay, so your concern is whether or not the program...
What I would like to know is what the federal government is doing to review, or going to do, and specifically what Bardish decides to do to review the effectiveness of this program.
All right, Robert. Appreciate the question. Certainly a hot button issue, Bardish.
Yeah, and I thank you for the question, Robert, and I look forward to communicating with Helen and let her know that she's always welcome to reach out to my office. I welcome those conversations. I hear a diversity of views and diversity of perspectives, and I think that's why these kind of opportunities are important. And there's many people who feel that the government's not doing enough. And the federal government did enter the space because if you look at what's happening across the country, people are self-medicating. Things have been tough. It's difficult. And we do need to find a way forward. We do have a publicly funded healthcare system, and people are using substances. I would have to disagree with some of the comments, but at the same time, I'll let the evidence speak for itself. And some of it just comes down to perception. But the people who are offering these programs are highly credible individuals, and I'm sure they would be highly offended to know that people believe that the supply they're offering for this program is ending up on the streets, because that would not be the case. It is a controlled substance. It is limited and restricted to where you can use it. It is monitored and supervised. It is very limited as to who is able to access it. But we do know that there's people who are seeking assistance and not wanting to be using substances. So how do we work with them to get them to a lifestyle that works for them and works for our community? And so I think that's where there is just a diversity of perspectives and views. We are making decisions based on evidence. All levels of government are working together, but I would agree that the federal government has a role to play. And I can reassure you, Robert, that any program that we offer often has a sunset clause. And right now, people are actually concerned that there might not be another wave of funding for it. So not only will it be reviewed, it might not be a program that's going to go on. And I am concerned of just some of the ramifications that will come out of it, because having our friends on the streets who are using substances, it's difficult, especially for families and so forth. So how do we actually be part of the solution?
All right. Robert, appreciate the question. And let's next go to Scott. Scott, good morning. You're on Ask Your MP with Bardish Chagger.
Good morning. I have three questions. They're probably not going to be too comfortable, but I got to say what I thought other people would be asking. Like, it wasn't so long ago, everybody was up in arms about the Arrive Cam scandal, and what I thought the We Charity scandal, and like, what, I can't believe you guys aren't all in prison, like you're charged or something. Like, maybe you can elaborate on that. Like, why can't we fund our veterans? Why can't we give our veterans and look after them properly, or our seniors, but we can give billions of dollars to Ukraine? Like, maybe expand on that for me.
Okay, so foreign aid and the Arrive Can scandal.
No, like, in looking after our veterans and our seniors, instead of giving billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine.
Right. So, okay.
Not just foreign aid. It's been billions and billions of dollars, but Trudeau sat in the town hall and said, we can't give more to our veterans. Like,
that's not what he said.
That's what he said. We can't right now. If they're asking for more than we can give, was his exact word.
Okay, Scott, appreciate the call and the concern. Let's start on that point. I mean, foreign aid is something that is...
Can I just go through? I'll go through his question like
sure.
he wants. Yeah, no problem, Scott.
By all means.
I welcome these kind of conversations. And I think what's important is it's challenging because there's a lot of different spaces to get information. And oftentimes I can tell what news feeds or what subscriptions people are on when they're gaining information. And we need to diversify how we obtain information. Growing up, I used to read one paper and I would know exactly what's happening. Today, I can read 12 papers and I still don't know the story. Depending on who I'm following on social media and so forth, I'm getting oftentimes their perspective, their opinion, rather than the information that's available. The Arrive Can system, very concerning. Like, how did that happen? I agree. I always say, like, if it comes to technology and innovation, let Waterloo do it. We'll do it for cheaper. If anything, we'll do it for free. And our students at the University of Waterloo in first year engineering or computer science, if they can break into it, it's breakable. So give it to us as a project. So I hear the concern. A lot went on with the Arrive Can. Committee studied it, and parts of it, obviously, as was reported, were turned over to the RCMP, and I believe in an independent judicial system. So bad things happen. People should be held to account, and we definitely should deal with it. In regards to We Charity, it's something that comes up often. And I was the minister of the day. And so what happens oftentimes as a cabinet minister, you're given 3 recommendations. There's a preferred, there's one that might be all right, and there's one that they don't recommend, but cabinet can determine it. To be the way forward. I was given 1 recommendation, and that's why it took so long for us to actually be able to advance it. I actually returned it to the Prime Minister's desk. It sat on his desk for a month or so because we needed to respond to the pandemic, and we wanted a program for students. At the end of the day, not a great situation, but not a single taxpayer dollar went to the We organization or to We Charity. It was a contribution agreement, which means if they were going to do work, they were able to do it, but it would be at their expense if the program did not go through. And the program did not go through. And those are the facts, and people should actually listen to them. But if they choose to listen to what you want to, I lived it, I know it, that's what happened. But I was not given 3 recommendations. If I had said, I would prefer this Waterloo Region organization do it instead, the country would have been up in arms, right? Being like, oh, it's an inside job. So we follow a process, and I can only make decisions based on what's recommended. Only 1 organization was recommended, and Cabinet tried to go forward with it. It did not turn out. Not a dollar of taxpayers' money went that way. Everything was recouped, and I ensured that that was the case. On Ukraine is a very different situation. And I think it actually is important that Canada talk about it, because this is about one country entering another country. 2 sovereign nations, 2 nations with borders, internationally recognized, and one country feels that it's okay for them to want a little bit more land, enter in, and bully their way in. And I don't know that that's okay. So once again, diversity of views and perspectives, but it should never happen at the expense of Canadians and the people who have served our country. I would not be here if it wasn't for our men and women in uniform. Anyone at the Legion, anyone at the Naval Association, at the Wing, and the list goes on, knows very well that every single day I thank our men and women in uniform, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, but also those who came home. And I know life's never been the same for them. And so we need to ensure that those services exist. I'm not going to play partisan politics because I'm not in a campaign right now. So we know that there has been challenges in the past. This government, under Justin Trudeau, did try to bring back the centers to ensure services are available, bring back services. And I welcome feedback. There's going to be a budget coming up. And so if we think there's opportunities to serve our veterans better, I welcome that, because I think they're owed it after everything they've given us.
Can't wait for that budget. You know how I love me some numbers. All right, Bardish Chagger in studio with us. It's Ask Your MP on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are in studio this morning with Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger, who has graciously agreed to sit down with us and take your calls. I want you to get as many questions in as possible, so right back to the phones we go. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. I've got a question for Bardish in regards to tariffs. I consider myself a small C conservative, but I did vote Liberal this time because of the leader. Being a businessman and in the money markets and that, I figured he must have some conservative views in regards to finance and that. I'm a little disappointed in that he has chosen to do retaliatory tariffs on the United States when we all know, or it's been put through the media, that it is a tax. I'm wondering why he didn't choose to tax, or you could even use his fuel taxes on energy, which the United States seems to need from us, such as the electricity in the 3 upper states there, as well as fuel that we send south. So my question is that Why doesn't he do that? Because what's happening is retaliatory taxes. Our people are having to pay that, whereas if it was a tax on products only going to the United States and that they need, it might be less problem for Canadians, and maybe the Americans would feel it a little bit more.
All right, Mark, appreciate that question. We'll allow Bardish a chance to answer.
And thanks, Mark, for that question. I think, okay, I don't want to keep repeating, but we are a federation. And so the federal government alone does not get to put a tax or a tariff on energy. And you'll notice that the premiers all have different views, and there is a desire to come together as a Team Canada approach. But at the same time, the federal government alone does not get to make the full decision on how our natural resources or energy sources are tariffed. So in that case, yes, there's a couple provinces that would be involved, and we would need them to agree with it. But we saw what happened with our Alberta Premier, who was quite adamant about that would not be the approach that she would be supportive of. So we really need a Team Canada approach. We need everyone to be able to work together. Ideas like this are welcome. And so the federal government actually opened it up to all Canadians to say, send us your feedback, let us know. And they would definitely engage and let you know where that might be a challenge or how it might not compute to the outcome. At the end of the day, I think we also have to remember that I always say that you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. And Canada and the United States, I would say, are family. They're our cousins to the south. We share the longest border of any two countries in the world. And for the most part, the American population itself does not like what's happening. They would like Canada and the U.S. to have a good trading relationship. They're okay with the CUSMA deal that was signed between the federal government of Canada and President Trump at the time, so the United States of America. And so they would like to see that be upheld. They're okay with renegotiating as we are to ensure it works for all sectors and industries and works for our people. But that's just not the approach the president's choosing to take right now. And so I think Premier Ford said it best. You just don't know what the comment's going to be for the president on any given morning or any given afternoon or evening. And so it's really unfortunate when the president's kind of negotiating over X rather than actually having negotiators do the work, looking at the numbers. And at the end of the day, the United States of America actually does have a trade surplus if you take energy out. And that's why I think, Mark, the point you're making, very valid. But I'm not sure that Canada needs to be punitive. But at the same time, if that's what it comes down to, we'll have to see where the negotiations land. And we know that the United States of America needs our resources. And the Prime Minister today was quite clear on that we can't look at trade deals that the United States is having with other countries because the other countries take energy sources from the United States versus the United States need them from Canada. And that's where we are going to fight for Canada. We're going to fight for Canadians. And comments like yours actually help me do my job as your member of parliament. So I'll definitely push that forward.
Time certainly flies, and we are fresh out of it with you this morning, Bardish.
I brought you a gift.
Really? I'm only getting it now?
I am.
Okay.
I brought you a Canada Needs More Waterloo mug.
I love it. Thank you.
And I brought you a locally made chocolate, third-generation chocolatier, originally from Turkey. Delicious chocolate, Esta chocolates, and it's milk chocolate for you.
I love me some Esta chocolates. I love this saying that Canada needs more Waterloo.
And if anybody in Waterloo wants a Canada Needs More Waterloo mug, stop by my constituency office or send us an email and we'll have one for you. They come in black and red.
Ooh, very nice. And that Kinsted office is on Regina Street.
It is.
Okay.
Waterloo, I think, is the only riding in the whole country out of 343 ridings where the MP, the MPP, and the mayor are all in one building because we want to fight for our constituents and make sure they have the services they need.
But you all get along. Dorothy, Catherine, and yourself, of course.
I get along with all the elected officials in the whole community because I think that's important. So I'm really excited to be working with the 3 new MPs who have been elected this last election, and we're going to do whatever we can for this region.
Thank you for the gift, but thank you mostly for the gift of your time with our audience today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Bardish Chagger, Waterloo MP. Ask Your MP. I think we'll do it again sometime on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Time flies when you're having fun and asking questions of your local MP. We got to as many as we could. I know there were some of you left on the line, and I'm sorry for that. But hey, if you want to carry over the questions of any kind that I might or might not be able to answer, or even give feedback on this last segment, what you thought of it, anything else on your mind, the Talkback Hour begins right after this update on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rock.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is your daily Talkback Hour where instead of not talking back, we actually encourage you. Please talk back. 519-570-2545. Star 570. 1-800-570-5715. I think you know that already, though, so I should have saved you the time right there. We couldn't get to everybody in the last hour. I'm sorry for that. Got to as many as we could. But if you've got feedback on ways we can improve such a segment in the future, I'm here for it. In fact, I'm already working on, because as I told you at the beginning of that segment with Bardish Chagger, who we ran into each other at an event, and she said, you know, I want to come on the show and I want to talk directly to the listeners. I will take calls. So we made it happen. And I think she's onto something. I kind of wish I had done this sooner. But we will, before the end of the summer, also get one of our MPPs in studio with you for an hour taking calls. And we'll get through as many as we can. I promise you that. But happy to hear your thoughts on what we were able to accomplish in the last hour. Anything else, if it's going on in your world and it's important to you, we would love to hear about it on the show. A couple of things that really caught my attention today. Well, let's make it a few. The mayor of Guelph, who says maybe instead of a ticket the first time you get caught by a speed camera, it could be a warning, so you don't end up with multiple tickets coming in the mail because, you know, you went past that place where the speed camera was and then you went past it again, but by the time the ticket got to you, there were multiple infractions. You're getting a big bill in the mail, not exactly kosher in these days where affordability is an issue. I think that's an interesting suggestion by a local mayor, Cam Guthrie in Guelph, putting that forward. How about the Angus Reid study that shows about 1 in 4 Canadians currently working from home, if given a back to the office mandate, like many companies are starting to do, they say they'll quit. Like, you're going to quit your job because you can't work in your pajamas anymore? Am I missing something here in the whole work from home phenomenon? I get that we can do these things and we should absolutely offer some more flexibility when and where required, but I don't think the flexibility should be the rule. I don't think there should be a rule that you can work in your jammies and do a 3-minute commute from the bedroom to the dining room table. How about getting out of your house and going to work like we've been doing for millennia? I find it very strange, this whole idea. I'm going to quit if I have to go back to the office. And then at the by-election in Alberta, you know, the long ballot thing, we've touched on this, right? And how it's gotten a little bit silly, right? More than 200 candidates in that by-election where Pierre Poilievre hopes to gain re-election to our federal House of Commons. But if you are voting in that election, it's going to be a write-in ballot. So instead of having to find the name out of the 200 plus on the ballot, you're just going to write down the name, Pierre Poilievre, of the person you want to win. You can't just write down the party name. You could write Conservative Pierre, perhaps, but you can't just write Conservative because there are so many independent candidates that if you just wrote independent, they wouldn't know how to assign the vote. So the vote will count if you write the name of the candidate, but you're not going to have to go through this whole long list and check the right box. The list will be available for your reference, but the ballot will be something you just write the name of your preferred candidate on. Maybe this will mark the end, pun intended, mark the end of the long ballot campaign. Anyway, just a few things on my mind as we open up the phone lines for Talkback and start with Kyle. Afternoon, Kyle.
Afternoon. Well, what a conversation about having a tow truck, because my car just broke down and I'm waiting for a tow truck.
We talked about tow trucks on the show this morning. Are you kidding me?
I am not joking. I was driving my car. Next thing you know, I got a flashing check engine light. The next thing you know, I got all my lights coming on saying emissions failure and our emission systems failure, all-wheel drive failure. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm sitting at Clapson's corner just waiting for a tow truck now.
Good spot to be.
I know. So anyways, I'm going back to the, to the Bardish Chagger, federal MP. She obviously is the Waterloo region. She just doesn't have a seat right now federally.
Wait, what? Bardish Chagger is the MP for Waterloo.
No, but she's not sitting in the House of Commons representing Waterloo region, correct?
No.
Or is she? She's not an elected official.
Yes, she is.
No, right, but she's not in the House of she's not elected under Mark Carney, is she?
Yes.
Oh, she's actually sitting in the House of. I thought for some reason.
Kyle, come on, you're killing me here.
No, you know what? For some reason, I thought during the elections that she didn't get in under Mark Carney to represent Waterloo region for some reason.
You were wrong.
Anyways, it's good that we have that, because there is a lot of things that I think that we should be focusing on here in Waterloo region. We are the top 10 region in Canada, and I hope that we continue to get that support that we get federally through our MPs that represent us, whether it's Conservative, Liberal, or NDP. And sometimes the stuff that goes on, you might not like it and stuff, but it is nice to have that, because we are the fastest growing region in Canada, and that's the way I look at it. So, Mike, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going.
You're a million different directions. Kyle, go get your car taken care of, okay?
I'm sorry, buddy. All right. Thanks a lot.
Hey, when the tow truck gets there, reset Kyle's brain for us. He's having some trouble today. Bardish, not only reelected, the only Liberal reelected, last Liberal standing in the region as far as MPs go. Ron, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, listener number 32 calling in.
Welcome.
So, you were talking about getting more women onto the show, just dedicating a show to women's requests, correct?
Our All Request Friday music, yes, I was thinking we might just do a ladies-only request show coming up.
Okay, well, I just thought of an idea that you could probably do this week if we wanted to have some fun with it.
Okay.
Women-only songs.
Yes.
Songs that are only sung by women.
That was brought forward, which gave me the further idea of maybe just letting the women make the request. But that, you might be onto something there, Ronald.
Well, just I would drop that idea in your lap, and maybe we can make it happen this week. I don't know.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for being a member of Farwell's Force. Badge number 32 is Ron. We are a force for good. We are a force for change. We are a force to be reckoned with. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag now. You're on your own for All Request Friday this week, because I'm not going to be here. I'm taking an extra long weekend. I know I did that at Canada Day too. I'm doing it on this holiday. I'm not gonna be here on Friday. I don't know who is going to be here. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be. So you're All Request, but I'm going to hold on to that idea, Ron, because I think you're onto something, buddy. You Farwell Force people, you're good people. I know. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Phone lines open to you for your thoughts on the issues of the day or anything else you want to make us aware of. Let's get right back to the phones. Gary, Farwell's Force member 41. Good afternoon.
How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm better now. I'm at home in the house with the AC, and I hope I hope it's cool where you are. So
it is indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Just quickly. So with the mayor of Guelph, because I live in Guelph, I always haven't been he isn't biggest fan of things he says or does. Not all of it, but like what I heard him say about the oh my God, what was it?
The speed cameras get a warning instead of a ticket.
Yeah, if you go through it once, depending on the speed, obviously, but you'll get a warning, and then if you're caught, again, then get a ticket. So, and this is the frustrating part, and I know, you've brought it up on your show before, and other people have called in, but it was several weeks ago. I was going through a school zone. The school was closed, and I thought I was being careful and making sure I wasn't going too fast, and then all of a sudden I got the notice in the mail saying that I was 12 over, and my lovely fine was $85.
So was that 52 and a 40 or 42 and a 30?
It was 42 and a 30.
Yeah, see, it's ridiculous. Nobody driving 42 kilometers per hour should be ticketed. That's ridiculous.
And I showed my wife, and she's like, are you kidding me? Like, if I was doing 60, 70, 80, not a problem. But this whole thing, like when I think that one caller called in a long time ago, it was on Christmas Day or something, and he got, busted. So I don't know. They really need to change this, but I love the idea from our mayor, Cam. Yeah, that's a great idea and a good start to getting some change, that's for sure.
All right, Gary, appreciate it. And again, I'm just going to say, the person doing 42 kilometers per hour is not the road menace that you're looking for. Stop it already. Utterly ridiculous. And to Gary's point on not always agreeing with what the mayor of Guelph has to say, if we all agreed with each other all the time, how boring would this life be? Moving on. Davin, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
It's a wonderful show you have here. I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
You're doing a good thing. I just wanted to comment on the folks that are being ordered back to work and considering quitting for that reason. I know a lot of folks who live and who work in things like nursing, informatics, or statistics, or programming, and a lot of their job is done on the computer. And during COVID, they had to figure out how to deal with having their kids at home at the same time. And the wait lines for getting them back into daycares is sometimes 2 or 3 years. And particularly if you want to have a really good daycare, you might be on the line for a really long time. So I think it's more a matter that they can't actually go back to work without, leaving their 2 or 3 year olds at home. And they have few other options because families are rather dispersed. They don't live together as much anymore, or nearby they don't have parental support. So I think there's just fewer supports and longer wait times for getting into childcare situations. So I think that's why a lot of people are considering quitting when they're being ordered back to work, is because they can't factor it out how it's going to work in their life.
Davin, it's a great point. Really appreciate the call and the other perspective on that, because as I said, we go to work. We've always gone to work. I don't understand this concept of, no, you have to let me work from home or I'm going to quit. But I think it's an excellent example that Davin shares as to why some people might be willing to do just that, because I think that's pretty bold. But how do you make it all work if you're a 2 or a 3 year wait from that all-important daycare? Thanks for bringing the perspective to Talkback. That's what it's all about, different perspectives. Kevin, good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Great. Thanks for taking my call. Now, I do listen to your program a lot, and it's one point I think I've heard you cover for the speed cameras. I think it's a danger because a distraction from you driving, because you're watching your speedometer, trying to make sure that you don't go over the limit, right? And, you're more concentrated on that than you are on the road and watching for children or anything like that.
Kevin, I think that's another excellent point, and I appreciate the call. I would put that further down my list of arguments, because it shouldn't be too hard for us to pay attention to all of the things, including our speed. But it gets to the bigger point here. If you're doing 60 or 70 in a school zone, you know it. If you're doing 42, it can just be that little bit of inattentiveness that, oh my gosh, it's a 30. I better really be slowing down. Kevin's onto something, though. It's definitely on the list of arguments. We've got to change the way we're rolling out speed cameras in this region and beyond. It needs to change. It's a great tool because police can't be everywhere, but we are, dare I say, almost abusing the tool right now. Got to make some changes here. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We love to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts, your feedback, your questions, your ideas. Every day, noon to 1. Let's continue on the phones with Andre. Good afternoon, Andre.
Good afternoon, Mike. I wish I had one of your pens that I can take notes on what I have to say, because your show is just so wonderful, So again, never enough to say thank you, because you're the middleman, and I got to work my brain to say what I have to say. And the more I wait, the more I want to say. But I'm going to make it short, Mike. About the lady that was there from 11 to 12.
Bardish Chagger, our MP for Waterloo.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, because I would have to write it to know her name because it's unique. But, very thankful. You said she's the only person that's left in Liberal with our Prime Minister, right?
In this region, yes.
Correct. And the thing is that, and it's her fourth term, so, very important that we have that kind of help and support and power.
Oh, and I made a mistake. Tim Lewis is still there, too. Shame on me. He's in Kitchener-Conestoga.
That's okay. So, yeah, but anyway, for her to be on the show for 1 hour that we've never had, I think I've been on your show for 6 years, and it was great. Like, even David Drew does that for an hour, no way.
No, David Drew does a half hour every Monday morning at 11:30.
Right. So, but anyway, I wanted to say thank you for her for doing that. And my point that I'm calling, Mike, is did your other half, yeah, did she met you because you work at the Sub Shack? You said, why did you work there?
No, that's not how she met. I never made her a sandwich. There's all these years I've never made the poor woman a sandwich. No, you called yesterday and we're talking about the sub that you loved. And so I said, well, I'm just going to shout out the old Sub Shack because that's where I used to work. I worked there because I had to pay my tuition, Andre. Somebody's got to make some money to pay that tuition.
So the reason I'm talking back about it is I talked to my wife, and you're right. It was the best. They're not there no more, right?
No.
So she said that they were the best sub. She worked there too, and she got transferred to the one at the Driftwood Plaza with, I think it was Rosie or something like that. And she was the manager. And when I met my wife, she made me a sandwich, and I think she makes the best sandwich in the world. And that's why I was very grateful when she said, yeah, the Firehouse sub is amazing. They're good.
Okay, but wait, your wife worked at the Sub Shack, though. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, because Andre called you yesterday. Oh, I love this hour. Every day, I love it more. Andre called yesterday to talk about his experience at the sub shop right here at the boardwalk. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to shout out this place. It's no longer in business. Not that I put them out of business, but I used to work at the Sub Shack, one of those jobs you took. And listen, the guy I worked for was great. It was a nice family-run business, and it helped pay my way through college. And if I hadn't got that college diploma, well, where would I be? Not sitting here talking to you. So blame the guy that hired me, okay? Talkback continues. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Talkback Hour is your opportunity every day to weigh in on an issue we discussed on the show, or maybe you've got an issue of your own that you want to make us aware of. Phone lines are open at 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. Mark, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. I have two questions.
Sure.
First one with respect to the speed cameras. Who gets the revenue from that? Is that the region or the individual municipalities?
Ooh, I think it's the region.
Okay, and what percentage does the region get, and what percentage does the company get that does the billing?
That, my friend, is a $1 million question. I do not know the answer to that. I think, based on numbers we've seen from Wellington County, the camera provider, operator, whatever, gets about a third. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, well, you know what I suspect is also in the contract is that they have the cameras have to stay on at all time, and the region has no choice in it. They probably didn't negotiate that when it came up.
Yeah, interesting. I wouldn't even begin to guess, but you might be onto something.
Okay, and my second one is you made an interesting. I really did appreciate Bardish Chagger coming on this morning, and I'd like you to do more of that because it's very, very good for everybody here to learn exactly what's going on with whatever party it is. But I'd like to make you a little bet, and I'll bet you a dinner and your finest beer that you can't get MPP Mike Harris on.
Is that a challenge, Mark?
That is a challenge because he will not return phone calls. He will not let you into his office. They send one of the staff out to talk to you. You can't get a personal meeting with him unless you try and show up at one of his ribbon cutting.
All right. Well, I'll take you up on that challenge, and we'll see what we can do. Certainly about doing more of what we did in the last hour. I appreciate your support of it.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Great to hear from you. I'm glad you found value in that. And I'll just say again, Bardish and I were at the same event about a month or so ago, and she approached me and said she would like to do this. And I kind of felt the fool. It's something I absolutely should have been working on a long time ago, because it is, I think, a valuable service that we can provide to you, direct access to your local representative. We have municipal councillors on all the time, MPPs and MPs less so, and never in our 8 years on this show have we had an MP or an MPP on for a full hour taking questions. So my commitment to you is, and I'll be honest with you, I've already made the request for one of our local MPPs before the end of the summer. I think we're going to be able to make it work. And then this will absolutely, I commit to you, become a regular thing. Maybe a good idea during the summer recesses from House of Commons and the provincial legislature when MPPs and MPs are back in their home ridings consistently. Maybe that's a good time for these sorts of things to happen, because whether you like the answers you get or not, you get that direct access and you can have some things maybe sorted out. I think it's useful for sure. I'm glad you felt the same way, Mark. Greg, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First-time caller, sir.
Are you kidding me?
No, sir, I'm not.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Hey.
Attaboy, Greg.
All righty.
Okay.
We're talking about speeding, correct?
Yes.
All right. Our home, and along with a bunch of others, back onto Homer Watson between Manitou and Pioneer Drive.
Put a speed camera out there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You will not believe the speeds that are done by motorcycles and vehicles, and the loudness.
You know what? I do believe you, Greg, actually. And this is my point with these ridiculous cameras. What are you making 30 kilometers an hour on some little residential street in July when you could put a camera on Homer Watson where the limit's 70 and people drive like $1.20?
Yes, they do. You can tell once you're sitting in the backyard, you can know what their speed is.
Yes, sir.
And I can even tell you what kind of motorcycle goes up and down the street.
I'll bet you can.
Yes, I can, sir. So that's a regional road. I understand they want the traffic to move, but, I mentioned many times ago that reduce the speed to 50 and maybe people will do 70.
There you go. Might be the case.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Greg.
Just my point. All righty.
Appreciate it. Great to hear from you. That's where you want. Those are the speeders you're looking for. You're not looking for the person doing 42 in a 30. You're just not. Terry, talk back to you. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. A quick question here. I know you've been talking about these speed cameras. A couple times I've heard callers call in and say they've gotten tickets for going like 42 and a 30. I think today you had one of those. Now, do you know off the top of your head what the
no, I don't know what they're calibrated at. I have no idea. And this is something, the reason the Waterloo Region Record filed a Freedom of Information request to the region, which was denied, and they were looking for that information. It should be shared.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason I ask is because I haven't seen anywhere like any of these speed cameras where I live, but I've been down your neck of the woods there in Waterloo Region many times. But my motorbike is not calibrated properly, because if it shows on my speedometer I'm doing 60, technically I'm only doing 55, so it's off by about 5 kilometers. So that's why I'm asking, because so if I'm doing 60 on my bike, I'm pretty much good. I'm in the 60 zone.
Well, yeah, at least it's calibrated in your favor.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. But But I think, I know you're probably going to disagree with what I'm going to say. I think it's good practice, though, for us to keep within our speed. Don't you agree? Within reason. I mean, getting a 42 for a 30 is ridiculous. Well, but, I mean, if you're going 50.
Terry, make no mistake. It is a very good practice for us to stay within our speed. If you're doing 55, 56, and a 50, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it. It's the problem is where we're putting these cameras, the arbitrary speed limits we're assigning to those roads, and the fact that you leave these arbitrary low speed limits on all year round. It's ridiculous. That's what needs to change.
Yes, very much so. Because where I live, there's a school just on the other side of the road, like within a stone's throw away. And there's no speed cameras there, but I noticed that it goes pretty quickly from 60 to 40. But right now school's out, so it's still, I mean, I still keep it within 40 because you never know. But even though, you know, it's summertime. But yeah, my basic point of calling is I think it is a good practice, but 42 and a 30 is ridiculous, Mike, and I agree with you there.
All right.
Thank you, sir, for taking my call.
Thanks, Terry, for making it, and you're not going to get an argument from me on that. Look, the technology can be useful. The way we are implementing it here in the region is an absolute disaster, and I maybe should move Terry's way, because I was out Wellington County on the weekend, and there were speed cameras galore. We've gone speed camera crazy, and it's driving me a little nuts. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy Talkback Hour today, so let's get right back to the phones for Paul from Kitchener. Good afternoon.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Paul.
You're upset about this. Other callers are upset about the speed cameras. What you need to do is go fishing. That's what everybody needs to do is go fishing.
There's no speed limit out there on the rowboat, eh?
No, There isn't. And that's why I'm calling, because as you know, and you're a big supporter of us, we're putting on Basstoberfest in September. It's an Oktoberfest-style bass fishing tournament, and then at the Alpine Club, we're still looking for participants. So if there's any listeners out there that are interested, they should go to the alpineclub.ca website, click on upcoming events, and then click on Basstoberfest and fill out the form.
You're a beauty.
They can relax, they can fish for some bass, and then go have an Oktoberfest-style party afterwards at the Alpine. It's going to be an awesome day. We're really looking for more people to participate. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. Great to hear from you. Get off the road, get onto the water. alpineclub.ca. You had me at the Oktoberfest-style meal to end the day. Bring it on. Deb, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm a first-time caller and a new regular listener.
Come on, Deb.
Let's go. I'll take the number, too.
Yes! Where did you come from? What rock did you crawl out from under? Where did Deb go? Where'd she go?
I'm here.
Okay. Here you are. You worried me there for a second. Yes, I can hear. I can hear you now. What brings you out of the woodwork, Deb?
Well, I just called a comment about the speed camera fine.
Okay.
So I'm one of the people that got caught doing 42 and a 30.
Ridiculous.
And not only is it ridiculous, but I don't know if everybody knows this. The set penalty is $60. On top of that, there's a victim component. I don't know what that means.
It goes to the Attorney General of Ontario.
$15, and then also a plate lookup fee, which is $8.25. So bringing the total fine to $83.25. I don't know which is more ridiculous, the cameras themselves or all the administrative costs that are tacked on to the fine itself.
Great point, Deb. Great point. I'm so sorry you got burned. You're not a speeder. You're not a maniac, I promise.
I know. All right, that's all I got.
Thanks, Deb. Great to hear from another first-time caller. We love our first-time callers on this show. Be one anytime. You're always welcome in these conversations. And that point that Deb makes is one of the other big issues I have with the speed camera program. It's like a cottage industry that's been created. We're in the region. Just think about this. With the plan to roll out 175 cameras by 2028, 175, we're also going to hire 33 people to manage it all. So we're creating employment for almost 36 people. Because am I the only one that sees the fundamental flaws in all of this? That's not what the program should be about. It should be about safety, slowing people down. Jesse, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike.
I'm not a first-time caller. We've talked a number of times. But in this case, I really want to point out, like the Homer Watson comment, Cambridge just built a lovely new raceway at the south end. Myers
McQueen
Road.
Shaver. Oh, Myers.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, McQueen Shaver. But Myers Road is getting the speed camera right where they have a speed bump in front of my daughter's school. They've already dropped the speed limit. They've put a speed bump in, and now they're putting a camera in. Meanwhile, the racers are going so bad it sounds like Formula One out behind my house, and my kids are being woken up at 2 a.m. So tell me, where is the safety actually going?
Brilliant question, Jesse. Brilliant question. I hope you can get an answer to it. Thanks for the call today. See, this McQueen Shaver, Homer Watson, like there are so many places we could put speed cameras to good use. Instead, we ticket people like Gary and Deb for, oh my gosh, driving 42 kilometers an hour. Give me a break. This is Anonymous, Farwell Force member number 52 on the show.
Not very anonymous when I say it. I shouldn't have said that. My wife told me I couldn't share this story, but anyways, it's number 52.
Okay, 52.
So I can actually thank speed cameras for one reason, and I got a little story to share. So this is out in Manitoba. I don't know how it works now or what they're doing anyways now, but back in the day, when my wife and I, we weren't dating. She knew I had interest in her, but at the time she kind of said, well, you know what? My ex-boyfriend's trying to get back together with me. And I just said, well, don't worry about him. You're going to end up with me anyways. And so we weren't dating, but kind of seeing each other. But yeah, and she was single. So anyways, long story short, I crashed my car. She calls me on a Friday, says, let's go to the movies. And I said, well, I don't have a vehicle. She shows up to my residence in her ex-boyfriend's car. Okay. And I'm already thinking, okay, this is looking good. So we go for a drive. There's random speed cameras in Manitoba where they don't even have to give you a warning or anything. Sure enough, I didn't know. I was speeding, didn't really know that it wasn't from intent or anything. So a couple of weeks go by, the ex-boyfriend gets a letter in his mailbox with a picture of me driving down my wife in his car. So thank you for that speed camera. You totally put the nail in the coffin for that guy, and been happily married ever since.
Oh my goodness. Speed cameras. Building relationships one ticket at a time. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Final minutes of our time together before we turn things over to Rob Snow. And now you know. So let's make the most of our time. Back to the phones. Lyle, good afternoon.
Mike, I was returning from my granddaughter's hockey game in Brampton a few months ago, back in, I think it was April, and I got flagged at 63 and a 50. There was no crosswalk, and there were no cars on a road that was 2 lanes each direction. Not a car in sight, and there was no crosswalk.
Those are tough ones.
63 and a 50. I'm trying to figure out where the safety aspect is.
It's a great question. When you talk about a 50 with 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, it reminds me of Bingham and Center Drive. People complain about that a lot. It's such a wide road, so much in terms of room for vehicles and traffic, and yet they have it at a 50 speed limit. It's crazy.
I don't mind the speed limit. It's just they should have there should be a criteria for how much you are over when they send the ticket out using the speed camera. I've actually heard of someone getting a ticket for 43 and a 40.
Yeah, that would be unduly punitive from where I'm sitting, for sure.
Totally, yeah.
Lyle, thanks very much. You too. Appreciate it. 63 and a 50. I mean, that's a tough one. I would side with the enforcement there, but I get Lyle's point. I mean, if we're talking safety here and you're on a 4-lane road and there's not another vehicle in sight, oh boy. I think, look, drive 50 on Bingham and Center. Make sure you do. But I think that's a street that could use a bump in the allowable speed. It's an industrial area for the most part. Francis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'll try to make it short. I don't know if it's between signs or cameras or whatever. I'd suggest to people that if you really want to get ticked off, is to crawl through Wallasting where they have you going at 40 kilometers. And there's people have brains out there. They look both ways, and there's nowhere in the area of any cars, anything else going on any time of the day. So Like, come on with it. Come on, eh?
Come on with your coming on, Francis.
Yes, God bless.
God bless, my friend. Thank you for the call. Just go crawling through Wallenstein, and you'll understand the frustration of trying to drive 40. Look, if you're doing 42 and a 30, I'm sorry. You are not the maniac that we're trying to get off the roads. Please, someone keep your foot on this gas pedal, okay? Because we will affect some change in this regard. Remember, the Farwell Show force is a force for good, a force for change, and a force to be reckoned with. We will affect some change in this regard. I'm sure we will. All right, we got to get to an update from the 570 News Center. Rob Snow is ready to go. He'll entertain you for the next couple of hours. And here's an idea. Why don't we meet back here tomorrow morning at 9, okay? I'm Mike Farwell. You're a force for good. Bye for now.